Hi, everybody. My name is Carla Sosenko. I am the Features Director of Us Weekly. I am incredibly ecstatic to be here with you here virtually, of course, not in person, unfortunately, but I'm really excited because we're joined today by Jamie Gray Hyder, who is a cast member on Law & Order SVU. I feel like I'm not exaggerating when I say that I am possibly the biggest SVU fan on the planet. Although I think people watching, there are others that might fight for that title. But anyway, it's so good to see you. So thank you so much for taking time to join us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
How are you doing? I mean, obviously we're in the midst of a pandemic, so.
You know, one of the hardest parts, I think, for me, and I don't mean it to sound insensitive, is I was just in such an awesome place in my life and in my career and had this huge thing happen for me. And I was just so ready to embrace it and to continue running with that momentum. And so the stop kind of was like, oh, shit, things don't just revolve around you and what you need. And there's a world out there. And it's been an adjustment, but I think that in the end, I hope that it will turn out to be a positive for a lot of people to spend some time with themselves and kind of ground themselves again. Yeah. I don't know. That's my hope.
Were you in the middle of production? Did everything just kind of grind to a halt?
Yes, we had just finished our 20th episode of the season. I think that was, on a Monday or Tuesday, and Wednesday of that week we had begun the new episode, and Thursday is when they called it. So we had about 1 or 2 days of the next episode in the can, but other than that, we just we grinded to a halt, and everyone just kind of went their separate ways, and they're used to spending 8, 12 hours with somebody every single day, 5 days a week, and it's a big adjustment.
Yeah. Are you in New York still, or did you go
Yes, somewhere? I'm still in New York. I moved into my new place at the end of November. So there was so much that needed to be done, and I was working all the time, that this break has actually served as a really good time to kind of get my apartment in order with my fiance. We've just had tons of projects, and that's been keeping us busy. So ask me again in a few weeks when those projects dry up, because that's what's been keeping us sane, I think.
I feel like you'll find more of them. I feel like my apartment, I'm also in New York, I feel like it's never been cleaner. It's just, sparkling right now. All right, so let's talk about all the amazing stuff that you mentioned in terms of your career. So first of all, congratulations for joining the cast of SVU. So Special Victims Unit is a record-breaking show. It's in its 21st season, which is unreal to me.
Myself as well.
Right? It's crazy. So you debuted in the very first episode of this season as an undercover cop. So you play now detective Kat Amin, but we first saw you, it was one of the typical SVU ripped from the headlines plots revolving around a director played by Ian McShane, very much based on Harvey Weinstein, a director that was preying on young women, and you went undercover as one of those women. And then we didn't see you for a couple episodes, and then I think it was 3 episodes later, all of a sudden you were joining SVU. So my first question is, did you know when you first came on as Kat in that first episode of the season that you would be back?
I knew that I'd be back for a short stint. I knew that I was coming in to do 4 or 5 episodes, and there was an option for me to stay on. And I knew that from the beginning, which of course, it's hard to enjoy the job you just booked when you're like, but this feels like a 5-episode audition for the next thing. And it was a few episodes in. We didn't even go the full 5, I don't think, before they called me and told me, hey, we think you're a good addition. And I was just like, because not only do you wait for a series regular role as an actor, I'm like getting emotional because it was just such a huge deal at the time, especially because I hadn't worked in so long. So for it to go from 0 to 60 like that was just a huge shock, and kind of took a sec to believe. But not only did I book this series regular job, but it was on the longest running television show in the history of television. And it was on a show that I knew about as just a cultural phenomenon. It's just such a part of people's lives. And I couldn't believe that not only did I finally achieve this goal of being a regular on a show, but that it was this show in this season. And all of that still I'm like, how did I get here? But it's very exciting.
I mean, it seems like you just kind of are, you meld so seamlessly with the rest of the team. I wonder what it's like as an actor coming in. So you come into this show, Mariska Hargitay and Ice-T have been there from the very beginning. Mariska, of course, is also an executive producer. She now directs some episodes. Kelly Giddish and Peter Scanavino have been on the series for, I think Peter's like 7 years, Kelly's over 10. What is it like coming in as the newbie to such a well-oiled machine? Is that overwhelming? What is that experience like?
Well, everything that you just said was running through my head. The first day you go in and you're like, first of all, for you to say that I blended in seamlessly, that's a huge compliment, because these people have been living in their characters for so long, and I have to come in and try and find that comfort with my character as quickly as possible so that I do blend in, so that the styles match, so that I feel as familiar even though I'm new. It's kind of an interesting balance. But as Jamie, I was terrified and excited and anxious, and I think that started to dissipate the second that I started to interact with Peter and Kelly and Ice and Mariska, because they were so welcoming. They were so excited to have someone new. They, it's like I just gained a ton of brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles, and they showed me the ropes. Same with the crew. They all were incredible and really helped me learn, and I continue to learn every day. Yeah. But it was, as I've said a few times, and I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but this is the only way I could think to explain it, is it was insanely terrifying and, nerve-wracking up until the second that I actually walked through the door.
Yeah.
Once I was there, it felt like a really comfortable place to be.
Oh, that's nice. And you're not even now the newest detective. Now you were about to film the 20th, and now it seems like Detective Calhoun may be coming in, as we've been seeing him a little bit. It's like you're not even necessarily the new kid on the block anymore, so you can give him some advice, maybe.
That's a funny thing, because whenever we have guest stars, it sort of reminds me of my position on this show, because I'm the one telling them, like, hey, welcome, this is that, this is where this is, let me know if you need anything. And all of a sudden it puts you in a position of being in the know, and that for me was an interesting experience, to feel as new as these people, but have them to look to you for advice, or maybe they're far more experienced than I am, and they just know that this is an exciting thing for me to be new on the show. All of our guest stars just bring kind of a different vibe or energy to when we all work together.
Yeah. It's so interesting to think of someone like Ian McShane. I've seen photos of the two of you guys, like, and just when you're not in character, and it's like he plays kind of the most horrific kind of person you can imagine, and then it's like, that's Ian McShane. Oh my God, like, unreal.
Talk about pressure. Yeah. They're like, hey, here's your first episode of the 21st season of a record-breaking show. Oh, and by the way, your co-star is going to be Swearingen. And I was like, what? Because I had just watched Deadwood for the first time a few weeks before we had started shooting, and I didn't know. And so when Warren, our showrunner, told me, he's like, by the way, Toby is going to be played by Ian McShane. I was like, are you kidding me? It was awesome. And he was lovely to work with. And I come from the theater world, so to be around kind of an old guard person was really refreshing for me.
Yeah. So something about Kat that has become like her signature that I love is that she always wears a nameplate, and it's in Arabic. And I think, obviously, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that you're of Lebanese descent.
Yes.
How important was it for you to play an Arab American woman on TV? And was that part of Kat's character from the beginning, or is that something that Warren and the writers worked on and kind of melded around you as an actor?
The Kat was initially written as Latina. And when I read, and then they cast me, Warren called me and we talked for about an hour and a half about this new character. And he loves to pull things obviously from reality when it comes to news and headlines, but also he likes to pull from our own lives as well to make our characters really fit with what you're seeing. And he decided that he wanted to change the ethnicity to my ethnicity, which I was just over the moon, because not only do I not get to play my own ethnicity very often, I got to do it in Call of Duty. They made my character of Lebanese descent, but it didn't really come up very often. But not only to portray my own heritage, but to portray a heritage that is often very much pigeonholed by the entertainment industry, and get to play something besides that was so exciting and important, and added gravity to what I was doing, because I wasn't playing a terrorist or a spy or a woman who's being controlled by her father or husband or, some other man in her life. It's not even a huge focal point that she's Middle Eastern. She just is a Middle Eastern person who's a cop, who grew up in New York, and is just another example of a human being. And that is what I love. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it seems to be, as you mentioned, a through line for the cast. I remember reading an interview with Kelly Giddish years ago that when she was cast, I think Amanda was originally supposed to be from Philly or somewhere else, and then they heard Kelly speak, and they were like, no, she's from Georgia. But it's exactly what you said, because it's right. And that's why the nameplate is such like a beautiful, brilliant little touch, because it's always there and we always are reminded. But the things that you think of when you think of Kat, as you portray her, is like, no, she's tough. She's a boxer. She is a bit of a rule breaker who kind of like acts before she thinks and is learning the ropes. And yes, she happens to be Lebanese. Like it's amazing. And
and the nameplate, what's funny about that is it says Catriona. But I came into my fitting wearing a nameplate my aunt had gotten me in Lebanon that had my name in Arabic. And when Juliet, our costumer, saw it, she loved it. And we both talked about it, and we decided to add it to the character. So they went and had one custom made for Kat. So that's like just such an awesome little personal touch.
That's amazing. You mentioned Call of Duty, so I want to talk about this a little bit. So Call of Duty, which is one of the most popular video game franchises ever. You were a part of Call of Duty. You worked on other video games too. What is it like to film a video game? I've watched some, behind the scenes videos of you working, and it's like, to me, I imagine it could not be more different than the working on SVU. What is the experience like filming a video game?
The best I can compare to it is it's like playing in your backyard as a kid, where you say, okay, that's lava, that's safe, that's your, clubhouse, this is my clubhouse over here, and here are the rules of the game. And that's sort of how performance capture works. You're in a room with a bunch of tape on the ground, cameras surrounding you on these big sort of, scaffolding type things around the room. And they say, okay, this square over here is where your chair is. This is a wall right here, so make sure you don't go through that area. Over here is where, you're going to stop and look at a picture that's on this wall over here, and then you're going to come over here and you're going to grab this metal piece that they have on like a C-stand that you usually use for lighting, and you're going to grab that, and that's your door, and then you push through it and you're out of the scene. And they show you on a little camera ahead of time what it's going to look like in the game. It's like a VR type camera. It shows you in real time kind of the environment, even though you're just standing in an empty room. So then you commit it all to memory, and then you go forth with the scene, and they're like, here, pretend this tissue box with a little marker on it is your hat. So they have me just take it from my head and tuck it under my arm, so I have something to put under my arm, so that when I'm walking, my arm isn't too close to my body, so that in the video game, when they animate me holding a hat under my arm, that way my arm is not going through the animation of the hat. They have to create the space, but you're just using like a little tissue box. So nothing is like what it actually is supposed to be. And that's why it's one of the most imaginative mediums, I think. Because even in theater, you don't really you've got a few set pieces, props, but you have costumes. And you have, an audience there. In motion capture, you don't have costumes. You have very limited props. You don't have set, you have a camera sitting 2 inches from your face, and then a helmet with these two little like dangly antenna things. And then you're in a suit that's a skin tight suit covered in balls. And you spend your 8 hours like that. And it's a mind-blowing, medium. It really, really is. And it's so much fun because you still have to get it right. And you still have to put forth the emotion and all of the traits of your character and be able to portray that without the help of any of those other elements.
Oh my God. It sounds insane. I can't fathom it. I want to talk a little bit about shooting in New York and fans of the show. So you mentioned that it is this show that has resonated with people. And it is such an interesting thing. But I've had this conversation with women in particular about how obsessed we are with SVU and how calming we find it and how empowering we find it, even though sometimes that feels a bit kind of counterintuitive because there is a lot about it that is very upsetting. Mm-hmm. We've come to the conclusion that part of it is that more often than not, they're not always the bad guys kind of, they get their comeuppance, which is not necessarily something that we get in real life. Right. The fans are pretty rabid. So when you're out, what is it like filming out there in the streets of New York? Like, what has the response been? Or do people come up and talk to you? Or even on social media? I want to talk a little bit about your social media because you're but also just in person. Like, what has the fan response been?
It's been amazing. You know, there's always going to be people who say, I don't like this new girl. And for me, as long as they're talking about my character, that means you're still doing a good job as an actor, right? It's not that they don't like me. If they don't like my character, there's plenty of people in this world you don't like. Right. But it doesn't mean necessarily that you're not doing a good job, which I think is important for a distinction that's important for actors to make, to really understand that. Kat came in, butted in, and there's going to be a reason why a lot of people don't like her because they feel she's disrespectful to the world that they've all lived in before she arrived. But for the most part, everyone has been so positive, and to stand on the street and watch people's faces when they see Mariska, when they see Ice or Peter or Kelly, it is amazing. They light up and they're like, oh my gosh, you're shooting Law and Order right now. Oh my God. They freak out. Everyone is so nice. They take pictures with everyone. Ice is one of the most generous people I have ever observed. And he told me something that I think is really important for people to remember. And especially if you're someone who has a higher profile, like someone like Ice, is he takes pictures with anyone that asks, as long as we're not rolling or as long as it's not interrupting. If they come up to him, he takes us a photo with anyone that asks, or just, pounds whoever walks by. Hey, what up, Ice? What up, man? He says hi and is so kind to everyone. Yeah. And I asked him, about that, and it said, it's hard to kind of maintain that. And he said, listen, if I don't feel like dealing with all of that in a positive and gracious way, I don't leave home. And if I'm at work and I'm not in the mood to be exposed, then there are tons of places I can go where people can't see me. Yeah. And he's like, if I don't feel like being that person and being that socially interactive celebrity, he's like, then I stay home. And because I know that if I go out, it's not fair if I'm rude to people. I'm paraphrasing, but it was, his idea was basically, if you're not prepared to be that way, maybe you shouldn't be putting yourself in that position, just at least that day. And so that's been really amazing to observe. And the fans who come up and tell you personal stories about their experiences with sexual trauma, it's heartbreaking and heartwarming at the same time, because they're sharing with you the darkest, most vulnerable parts of their lives, and then telling you that somehow something you did by reading these lines on a paper on a television show has brought them comfort. And you're like, oh my gosh, like, it's just such a privilege to provide that for people, I think. And this show is one of a kind in that way. I mean, shows trigger things for lots of people, but like this show, I'm like, of course, getting emotional again. Mariska and I get each other going like all the time. But it really is a privilege. Jobs like this, jobs like Call of Duty, where I started my work with the military and to continue to work with veterans, those opportunities to me are the most priceless parts of our jobs.
I mean, it is, SVU is really unique in the way that it has extended, Mariska started the Joyful Heart Foundation, which works with victims of sexual abuse and has done work with the rape kit backlog, and to hear that you get to work with veterans now, or not get to, that you decided to, that kind of like inspired, that is really amazing, and maybe answers the question a little bit of why this show is so important to so many people, because it's kind of more than a show.
It is. It's a source of comfort. I really do believe that. And whether it's just based on the fact that it's a structured thing that you can count on, and it's made in the same kind of way. And of course there's little variations and things, but I think part of it is comforting due to the familiarity of it.
Yeah.
And then also I think that despite how difficult the subject matter is, us talking about it is what helps those who have experienced it.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's right. Okay. So I had mentioned your social media, and you kind of answered the question before I asked it. So I have noticed, will interact with trolls. If somebody says something negative or snippy, as so many people on social are prone to doing, you will respond. So something that you just said a few minutes ago was that you think it's important for actors to remember that it's not a critique of the work. It's more often than not a critique of the character. Because my question was going to be, how do you as an actor either not keep a thick skin, but just like, how do you not let that get to you?
It's hard. And part of the reason I respond often, and I don't respond nastily, it's there's always like, there's always a little bite in there, but it's nothing too harsh. For me, it's about providing a light reminder that I'm a human being, that I'm a real person.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to just put it out there, what you think about somebody, and then back away from your computer. And I do it just to sort of create a discourse, because it also helps break that down.
Yes.
Now you're forced to talk about it, or not, or simply say, oh gosh, now I'm embarrassed. And people, I think you have to embarrass someone a little bit. It's like scolding a child. But I mean, even the stuff that I've gotten, like I said, a lot of it's been that cat rubs them the wrong way. Yeah. And that's understandable. And at first I was like, oh no. And then I was like, no, wait, that's not bad.
Yeah.
She's got somewhere to go. And this is where she's starting. Not to mention, anytime they add a character to this show, everybody hates them at first, and then they embrace them, and now they want to be their best friend.
Yeah. It's like every new Real Housewife they add to the franchise.
Exactly. It takes a sec for everyone to warm up, and then they're the new favorite. But on this show, I think I'm just so thrilled to be a part of it, and I know what it is, and I'm a part of a team, and a really awesome team, a really tight-knit team, and as long as the people who I work with and that I work for feel like I'm contributing in a meaningful way, that's pretty validating for me. But, it's never nice to have someone tell you that they hope you fall down the stairs and break your neck. Call of Duty was the worst. That's something that somebody actually said to you? They said, I hope you fall down the stairs and break your neck, drink bleach. Congratulations on ruining one of the best video game franchises of all time. Mount Rushmore called. They want one of their noses back. That's one of my favorites. That's
just weird.
And when there's a little bit nasty, I got a lot of things that were also sexually explicit that I had to report, and things, you're a bag of meat. And I'm being honest about all these things, because it's important that you air these things out there so they don't just live in the shadows. Yeah. And a lot of them I'd screenshot and I'd put out there, because then guess what? You've got several thousand people who are willing to do your dirty work now. And there's enough people out there who know that it's wrong, and they'll come to your defense. And I think highlighting those people is important as well.
Was your Call of Duty role, were you one of the first women or the first woman to have such a prominent role in that gaming series?
They'd had other female characters in the past, but I was the first female lead that they'd ever had in the video game. And that's something that I'm still incredibly proud of.
Yes, you should be.
in that case, the impact that I was able to have oftentimes was on the experience of female service members who would tell me that simply by virtue of people seeing me as a Navy SEAL pilot, it was kind of a hybrid between Top Gun and Navy SEAL character, but just simply by seeing someone, a woman in uniform doing those jobs, made it easier for the men in their worlds to accept them in their positions. And hearing that, again, that's the privilege right there. That is like, holy crap, I'm having a positive impact on somebody's life who's trying to positively impact somebody else's life, and you hope that change continues.
And the response that you got on social media is so reminiscent. I mean, the gaming world is one that I admittedly know very little about. And it's honestly SVU that taught me about it, because there was an episode. I sound like a but there was an episode starring Lily Singh as a woman who had created a game. And the entire episode was about the backlash against women in gaming and how hard it was and how much of a boys club it was and how unwelcome they are, and the lengths that some of the men in the gaming world would go to get them out of it. And so hearing about the fact that people have literally said things like fall down a flight of stairs is infuriating and terrifying. And I'm really glad that you share that so that people know that happens.
And it's weak. If you allow it to kind of impact you in the way they intend it to, then they're winning. And if you simply say, yeah, nice job, coward, I'm sure you're saying this from your mom's wood paneled basement. Yeah. Then it just helps take the power away a little bit.
I'm going to go to work right now on my TV show. Have a good day. Okay. So 2 kind of questions to follow things up. And I could spend all day talking to you, but we have
yeah, this is fun.
Go, but things to do. So one question I always like to ask is, what role is it that got you your SAG card? Do you remember?
Oh, I did a lot of commercials, and I can't remember if that was when I got my SAG card. If not, it was True Blood. It was playing Danielle on True Blood.
Amazing. Okay.
That was the first TV job that I did with a SAG card, I think. I did a show called Sons of Tucson. I did a co-starring episode where I only had one line, one word. But I may have had to have it for that, but True Blood was the first major thing I did with my SAG card.
That's a pretty big one for your role. And then the last question I usually like to ask is any advice, because obviously anybody that's watching this is an actor and part of SAG. And so my question is usually, what advice you would offer to any actors out there? And so that can be the question, or if there's a way or anything that you might want to add, I'm going to twist it a little bit too. Is there any advice that you would give actors for right now, like during this weird time when we're all locked in our apartments, whether it's, something, because it is like acting as like a muscle, you have to like exercise it and work. And so however you want to take that question, whether it's just general advice that you would give, any advice that someone gave you that you think is helpful to share, or just specific advice for right now, what you would tell your fellow actors.
Well, right now, is a time when you can kind of explore different things. So maybe if you feel so motivated, if you're somebody who loves television, maybe create some kind of a chronology of certain television shows, starting from way back when, and kind of give yourself a retrospective. If you're somebody who's really, or maybe you're into TV and you know nothing about theater, order a few plays to read, maybe, just maybe enrich your brain a little bit. But take this time to take care of yourself and get everything in your life in order so that when everything starts up again and it's time to go, you're super available. Mentally, physically, you're able and available. And I think that that's the best thing you can do right now, is not be hard on yourself about what you're not doing, but rather prepare yourself for your ideal possibilities for when we all kind of get back into our groove again. And regarding general advice, Obviously, rejection is kind of the hardest thing, one of the hardest things that we deal with as actors. And to that end, I'd say that I often tried to apply the metaphor of like a puzzle. And if you think of yourself as a puzzle piece, and if somebody tries to force that piece into the wrong place of the puzzle, and someone takes a look at it, the puzzle is going to look off, and it's going to be that piece's fault, right? They're going to be able to tell that it didn't really fit. With that in mind, sometimes the jobs that you don't get, and I know people say this and it's like, screw you, I want to get every job that I can. Sometimes the jobs that you don't get really are saving graces. And going back to that metaphor, as a puzzle piece, when you do find your place, you will fit so perfectly and you will be so right for it, and no other piece will be as right as you are. And so the combination of your entire life's experiences and your work or your technique or your studies, all of that makes you this unique thing, and you're not going to be right for everything. You should go in the room like you are, but if someone else decides you're not, it's not because there's anything wrong with you. You just belong somewhere else. So if there's any part of that you can take to depersonalize the experience, which is impossible, that will help you get through. And if you're a really young person, if you're still in school, if you're still in college, if you're new to this, and I say if you're a new person to this, because otherwise this advice is just kind of a pain in the ass if you're in the middle of it, but save your money. Your money will run out before your perseverance. And that is just a practical fact of life. If you do not have money and you have to get a job, that limits your ability to apply yourself to this. And that's not to say things don't go in waves and when you'll have more successful years one year than others. But if you're a young person and this is something you want to do, start saving your money now. And if you're in the middle of it, I know money is probably tight. It's always tight until it's not. And that advice can be annoying. But if you're a new person and you're a young person, start saving your money now. It's the most practical advice that I can give you.
Well, both of those pieces of advice are amazing. The first is really beautiful and I think really applicable to any kind of creative endeavor, whether it's acting or writing or whatever it is. You know, the puzzle piece metaphor, I think, is one that'll slip in. And saving your money is also incredibly wise advice. So I want to thank you so much for taking time to talk to us today. I am so just like in love with your role and your work, and I can't wait for you guys to get back to work and give us more episodes. In the meantime, I will continue watching reruns on a loop. Before we wrap up, I just want to mention to everybody watching and listening that the foundation is raising money for the COVID-19 Fund, particularly for actors at this very difficult time that we're all going through. So there's more info in the comments. Check it out. Jamie Gray Hyder, thank you again so much. Be well, be safe, everybody, and we'll talk to you soon.
Same to you. Thank you.